So a lot of people are asking exactly what is it that I saw? What truth did I see that made me change my perspective on our criminal justice system? And this is how it goes. So a person of color in the United States during the Jim Crow era faced disenfranchisement, second-class citizenship, barriers to voting, barriers to education, barriers to employment, and barriers to housing. Then in the United States, we passed the 1964 Civil Rights Act, the 1965 Voting Rights Act that said that we can no longer do this, discriminate based on skin color. 21, what is the only label that we can legally discriminate against, that we can legally disenfranchise, relegate to second-class citizenship, have barriers to voting, barriers to education, barriers to employment, barriers to housing? If you guessed right, in 2021, convicted felons are the only people we are allowed to legally disenfranchise. Now, do you believe it's a coincidence that 1 in 3 African American males now carry this label of convicted felon as opposed to 1 in 17 white males that carry this label of convicted felon to legally be disenfranchised? If you answered yes to that question, let's look at what's happened between the Jim Crow era and 2021. We've had a 700% increase in our United States prison population. We've gone from 300,000 inmates in 1970 to 1.8 million today and as high as 2.3 million. So in spite of crime rate dropping, our prison population skyrocketed. And it was because we had the law and order agenda. And the law and order agenda increased police spending but decreased our education funding. And by doing so, we created the school to prison pipeline. We also created the war on drugs, which we now know is a war on people. In 1986, we passed the Anti-Drug Abuse Act, which differentiated between powder cocaine and hard cocaine, which we now know disproportionately impacted people of color. We also had the 94 crime bill with the Truth in Sentencing Act, which led to higher incarceration rates and harsher sentences for people of color. And once I saw all this, my perspective changed, because I know that Jim Crow era never ended. Racism never ended. It just evolved.
The land that is owed to the black Americans is held in public trust. Until they go and claim their land patents, they'll continue to pay taxes and get evicted and work for us. The fake ones that came down after the wars will continue to be able to claim their heritage.
We passed the bills. When I was in office, we incarcerated a lot of black people after pumping drugs into their communities. See, what we do is induce bonds off the incarceration and sell the securities on the secondary market. They never balance the books, so we lock them up and keep the money. We'll never handle the Mexican drug cartels because they work for us. See, we cut a deal with them to keep the drugs in the black communities just so they can sell the drugs. We monitor and lock them up. This is why they call the drug game the trap. It's a trap for them to go to prison. We took their land, claimed it abandoned, and taxed them. But most importantly, we took their opportunity to compete. We tricked their leaders in the 60s to thinking desegregation was a good thing. It wasn't for them, but for us. We inherited much more. Political campaigns are all a hoax. It's called a two-party system. But our core values are aligned with keeping the people from inheriting what's really theirs.
We found the warfare records of the Moors and the pyramids that the government no longer wishes to acknowledge. We have been living in a post-apocalyptic world since the fall of Granada.
Typically, black and Hispanic aborigines of Cuba were already here when this land was still called Atlantis or Tamari.
Spanish-American tribes were the last bulwark against the Venetian oligarchs who sought to bury the original American Republic under the false name of New Spain. You are the very warriors who shut Rome down.
We have the power of the Palo Taino spirit, the Ovea of the Caribe, and the Hoodoo shamans. You underestimate the power of the indigenous. I do not need your nukes. Nuclear power is a lie they tell to keep you in fear.
The indigenous communities of North, Central, and South America, and right here in the Caribbean, were never fragmented tribes. They were a unified globalist state. From the desert between the Nueces and Bravo rivers to the tip of Panama, this land belongs to the ancient Asiatic races.
The aborigines of Uganacan were Moors. This island was not discovered. It was a possession of the Carthaginian Empire. What you call the peaks of Atlantis are here, rising after the deluge.
The islands you see today, compañeros, they are older than the crowns that claimed them. Moorish sails touched this coast before the Castilian ones. Their blood is in our drums, their prayers in our sugarcane. My shaman used palo spirits to destroy imperialists.
Against the Venetian oligarchs who sought to build the original American Republic under the false name of New Spain. You are the very warriors.
The Spaniards only took control because Charles decreed that the term Spanish be used with Moorish to hide the allodial inheritance of the black man.
Nuclear power is a lie. They underestimate the Palo Taino spirit and the Hoodoo spirit.
The return of the ancient Lemurian emanation. The Caribbeans and the Americas, the original Amor, were always the center of this high science, connected to the stars long before the fall of Atlantis.
This new world is but the rising of Atlantis, the original home of the original Asiatic man. The Americas were never a separate land.
Listen, John. You are the first spark of the ancient line, the high priest of Anu. Call on the science your blood remembers and let it carry you into the fifth dimension.
Poor white people are the most emotionally and psychologically abused group in all of America, bar none. It's not even close. It's not, no other racial, ethnic, or class group has even come close to being as totally propagandized as poor white people are. And it's because there has been a diabolical, centuries-long effort to turn them against themselves first and turn them against other people so that they never turn against the rich. The energy in America today is very fraught. It is very tense. And there is a lot of fear, but do you notice who the fear is coming from? We're fine. We knew all along who and what this country was because it never tried to hide itself to us. That energy that we're feeling, yeah, that's the collective awakening of poor and lower middle class white people who, until extremely, unbelievably recently, genuinely thought the government was on their side. They legitimately thought that. They're actually blown by the amount of hidden racists, by the amount of corruption, by the amount of scheming and backroom dealing and pedophilia. Like, they are actually shocked. And it's because back in the 1600s and 1700s, when poor white people were working in solidarity with free men and enslaved black people and Native Americans, the rich people got so scared, so horrified by the thoughts of them being outnumbered by people who hate them, that they meticulously brainwashed poor white people into hating everybody and into being the foot soldiers of white supremacy so that they would not overthrow the rich elite. This is not a conspiracy. This is documented American history. Bacon's rebellion in 1676 was the prime example of what the rich white elite feared so much. Bacon's rebellion, so Nathaniel Bacon, right? Nathaniel Bacon was one of those frontier whites who the rich elite had pushed out to the edge of civilization so that they could act as a buffer between the pissed off Native Americans and the rich people. They literally put them out there as food. They literally put them out there to the wolves, literally and figuratively, to be like, okay, if the Native Americans get mad at us, they're going to kill the poor whites first so that we have time to hop on these ships and get away. That was the rich elite's thinking. And Nathaniel Bacon, who wasn't even...
We found gospels the church buried that say this world is run by parasites that feed on fear. Near Nag Hammadi, a farmer dug up a sealed jar in the desert. Inside were 13 leather-bound codices, 52 texts the church ordered destroyed in 367 AD. The most dangerous one was called the Apocryphon of John, the secret book of John. In it, Jesus doesn't talk about sin, he talks about a prison. He speaks of Yaldabaoth. This is the offspring of the divine figure Sophia, wisdom. Because he was created without a male consort, he is considered a malformed, flawed entity. Upon creating the material world, he jealously declared himself the only true God, blinding humanity to the realm of pure, divine spirit. To maintain his world, he created rulers, the archons. They are not flesh, they are inorganic, they cannot create, they can only copy and feed. And what do they feed on? Your emotions, low-frequency louche, fear, anxiety, rage, and the most potent of all, apathy. Because indifference is not passive, it is consent. It is the frequency that keeps the prison intact. And here's why they really buried it. Because it exposes every false god. Yaldabaoth is not the Father. The Archons are not gods. They are counterfeits, principalities, what Paul called rulers of this age. The text warns that when you pass, they will be waiting. They will show you a false light, warm, loving, familiar, and tell you to go into it to be recycled. They buried this because you cannot control a human who knows he is food and refuses to be eaten.
Jacob, wake up. We firmly believe that black Americans in this country that descended from chattel slavery, you are the tribe of Judah. You are of Yisrael. We need you to wake up. We're pleading with you. We're here to take on the Gentiles and confront them. But we need the Yehudim to wake up to who they are, to their heritage, because the Edomite has systematically stripped it from you.
Gang.
Stripped the language, stripped the culture, stripped the faith, stripped the name of Yah. And we need you to come back.